Hold on. All right. That's better.
Thanks so much for coming to hang out with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, we were just talking. Did you drive up from Alabama to do this, or were you already here?
I was already here. We're getting kind of close to starting back the tour now, so obviously rehearsals and, we're in the studio recording. I'm constantly writing if I'm in town. But my farm in Alabama is about 3 hours away, so if I get 2 or 3 days off, I usually try to sneak down there.
So, do you have a place you stay here too, or are you constantly moving around here?
I've got a place here. I always say I don't really live anywhere. I kind of live on the bus. But I spend a lot of time in Nashville. It's just so many great relationships, great songwriters, and for me, if I'm here, I feel like I should be doing something, and they're usually pretty good at finding something for me to do, so I do a lot of working while I'm here.
So I kind of thought that Carl might show up, that the dog might show up today, and I'm sad, right?
I'm getting pretty used to that. Like, shows that I've gone to where he's not at, I just see the disappointment in people's faces when they're looking at my feet when I walk in the room to see if he's with me. But I'll bring him by here and let you interview him sometime.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I think we should have a puppy play date. It'd be awesome. Tell me about. So I've been listening to the album. That is an extensive collection of work. Like, walk me through making "Don't Mind If I Do," because you couldn't have just slapped that together.
No, it's a compilation of songs I guess I've written over the last several years, which is funny because we've put out a lot of music over the last couple of years. So sometimes it's songs that kind of have a new life. Maybe I live with them a little bit. It's odd to say that songs get shuffled through, but they really do. When you go spend the last couple of weeks, I've probably written 6 or 8 days, and when you do that, you kind of always like the last one you wrote. So I had some older songs I brought back, some songs that fans keep kind of requesting, and then a lot of them are brand new songs. I think I went and I wrote a couple of songs like a couple of days before one of the sessions we were in the studio.
Oh my goodness!
I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, so I do better when I've got a deadline. But I think what I'm most proud about with that record is it's got a lot of different types of songs on it.
Yes, it does.
And that was something I was pretty purposeful about. I think that as a writer, especially writing a lot on my own, I live in a place that's, I'm not the most talented guitar player in the world. I kind of can only come up with the melodies that I can come up with. So I lean on other songwriters for that kind of stuff. But I want to be able to have a record that's got stuff that appeals to a lot of people, and still tell my story at the same time.
I love that you said that, because that struck me when I was listening to the album, because and it makes sense that it came together. You've had songs for a few years, because you live like 3 lifetimes on that album. You like her, you don't, you want her back, you're in Mexico, you're all over the place.
Yeah, well, that's pretty accurate, really, I think, with my lifestyle and relationships. But it's fun to be able to do that. I think it's different now. I used to, when I was growing up, we bought CDs and we listened to them from front to back.
That's true.
And they kind of told a story. And although I still like to do that, I still like to put some thought into the track listing and kind of, maybe have it as a full experience. You also are able to put out music, in a different way now. I'll put out 3 or 4 songs as an EP or whatever it is, and maybe they make the album, or maybe they don't. Maybe one of them's a single and it, becomes the next single at country radio. So I love using those avenues and social media to play new songs and kind of get, a temperature from fans. I think that's kind of the best judge for me whether a song's any good is if they like it.
That's interesting. Do you think if people were still only consuming music in hard form, like if it was still just CDs or still just albums and not on streaming, do you think you would have put the album together the same way?
No. I think that there's a lot of songs that raised their hand through the fans that I probably wouldn't have been quite as bold about. Worst Way's one of them. I don't write a lot of love songs, especially not steamy love songs, and it was something that I did in the past. I wrote a song called "When She Comes Home Tonight" that still has kind of stayed around. And so I was like, man, I need to try to kind of live in that world a little bit. And I wrote that song. And, when you write by yourself, you don't have anybody to bounce things off of.
Right.
So it's kind of tough to know if you have something right, especially when you write something that's that forward. It's a little bit of a question. So if that song hadn't just really taken off from just me playing it on social media and playing it at shows, I probably wouldn't have put it on the record. I don't know that I would have recorded it.
And it's like killing it, isn't it? Like it's
Yeah, I mean, it went platinum a few weeks ago. It's a giant song. Yeah, it's in the top 20 at country radio now, top 30. So it's a big song.
And if I remember correctly, you made some waves with that video when it correct.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It was a lot more awkward than this. I'll tell you that. Like, this is fun. You know, shooting music videos and stuff like that is never. It's always a little awkward, you know, behind the scenes. You got a big group of people around, cameras and lights and all that. And you got to act, I guess. And it's always weirder. I think it'd be easier for me to play somebody else than play myself. You know, especially when you're doing lovey-dovey romantic stuff. But I thought it would be fun to make it somewhat comical. And the movie Bull Durham is what stood out for me as a reference. You know, sitting in the kitchen eating cereal with a bathrobe on, and it's done great. You know, it's not something that I would want to do every week, go film a music video like that, but it's certainly been worth doing.
When somebody listens to the album now, where are you the most? Does that make sense? What songs reflect Riley Green the most right now?
I think I'm naturally drawn at all times, especially as a songwriter, to the Jesus Saves type songs. Those like stories that have a meaning and can make you feel some kind of emotion. I think that for me to say where I am is always kind of in that spot where what's my favorite song to play, and that's probably it. You know, Don't Mind If I Do is another one that I really enjoy. Ella did such a great job on that one, and it's always cool when you have songs like that have not been pushed in any way. You know, it's not a single at country radio. You know, they haven't won awards or anything like that, but they're just big songs. Fans seem to latch on to them, and those are always the favorite ones for me to play. So certainly when I sit down with a guitar and try to write, I think I always start in that world of like a Jesus Saves ballad type song.
I saw you play that backstage at the Opry, and I feel like it sucked all the air out of the room in the best way. It's like you sing that, and it's just you and a guitar, and then it's so stunning that people can't even breathe when you're going through it. I mean,
well, it was another song I wrote by myself, and
right.
I knew the message I wanted to say, and that was an interesting thing about it. I had the title, I had like the whole premise to me was just trying to win over a stranger with what you can write on a piece of cardboard. You know how tough a thing that might be, and how quick we are to think the worst. You know, they're on the drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, and I started thinking about all the things that could happen in life that might make you a little more sympathetic, and maybe, you know, if a few things hadn't gone your way, you might be in the same situation, you know, and it took me a long time to write it because I knew the idea was good enough, that it needed to be done well, you know,
Yeah.
so I'd sit down and try it, go, no, it's not it, and then one day it just kind of comes together, and it's been really cool to see that song mean what it means to people, and to hear the message the way I meant it.
What did that feel like? I mean, writing that song, it is sad and it is emotional and it is like as a listener, but as a writer, I mean, did it have that same impact on you when you were putting the story together?
Yeah, there's about 3 songs that I've written that afterwards it almost got me. Like, and it's weird because when you're writing it, it's not so much, but going back and listening to it. And when I wrote "I Wish Grandpa's Never Died," I was in a condo in Nashville that I had, and I listened back to it, and it got me a little bit. And I wrote a song about my granddad Lyndon having Alzheimer's. It's called "Numbers on the Cars." And I remember going back and listening and kind of following the story. And it's weird that the second time through, after it's all the way done. And Jesus Saves was like that for me when I found out that they were going to name the baby Walter at the end. That got me.
That's what gets
And
me
it's weird to say I found out, but really, like it, you know, songs like that sometimes just kind of come together and you don't really put as much thought into it as it seems like you do.
Talk about the fan response to that, because I would imagine it's prompted a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite what "I Wish Grandpa's Never Died" was, but it's that feeling, you know, it's the emotion. It's there's something that's always really enjoyable about going out and playing on stage and people raising their beers up in the air and being really into it and having a lot of energy. But there's also something to people getting quiet, you know. You like to have songs that people sing every word to, but you also like to have songs that make people listen. And I started out playing acoustic shows for years and years, and used to have to go into restaurants and coffee shops, wherever they would let me play at. Not necessarily where people came to see me. They were just there to eat, you know, and I had to kind of win those people over, make them sit their drink down or their fork down and turn and pay attention. And that's one of those songs. So you always want to try to write those, especially the songwriter in me is always kind of longing for that.
The storyteller, right? It's a little bit more. I think what you do is a little bit more than songwriting. I think you go for more than that.
Well, it's at the end of the day, I guess it's trying to make somebody feel something. You know, that's what I love about country music is you know, even on a good day, I want to ride around and kind of be sad listening to George Jones for some reason. And I don't know what that is, but that's kind of where I naturally go musically when I sit down with the guitar.
What's your go-to sad song?
That's tough. It was Misery and Gin, Merle Haggard for a long time, but Rose-Colored Glasses. I mean, there's just something about any George Jones song can do it to me, but just gives me that feeling of taking something that's personal in their lives and writing something about it and sharing it with people is kind of a crazy thing.
I know you've talked so much about how much your granddaddy has inspired you and kind of led you here. What do you think he would think about this album?
Oh, he would love it. I can remember I wrote a song about my granddaddy Buford and played it for him before he died. I guess it was my first, song I've written about somebody personal to me like that, and his exact words were, "You gave me too much credit" in the song. And that's what he would say about all this, you know. And it's ironic because I wasn't playing music near, you know, at any level really when he was around, but he would have been a great songwriter. He wrote poems all the time, was very witty, good with words, and I think I got whatever I have of that probably from him. So it's cool to think about me making a living writing songs now, because I think that's something he would have really enjoyed.
I feel like your career has just exploded in the last little bit. What's it been like? I mean, I've seen you in stadiums, I've seen you on small stages, and it's the neatest thing to hear 100 people sing back or 70,000, and I'm wondering what that's like for you.
Well, it's a little bit of a constant learning experience when things are growing like they are. You know, I've played shows for over a decade, and it's you have to keep getting better at it when more people are showing up. And you know, when you're like the album I talked about having a lot of different types of songs on it, my fan base is getting a little broader, you know, and you got to find ways to win those fans over that maybe just know you from one song, you know, or maybe just came to see you because of the guy that you're opening for or whoever's played before you. And just looking at it as something that you can really get better at, and also, you know, that maybe it's not just luck that I got here, and trying to figure out what those things are that I did right and do more of those things. But there is something I miss about those smaller, more intimate shows, and I think keeping those mixed into stadiums and arenas and big festivals is important, because it teaches you how to really engage with a fan on an intimate level, and not just hey man, we're here to have a good time, y'all give me a hell yeah and hold your beer up, you know. And I think that's kind of what I always enjoyed about performing, was being able to go back and sit on a guitar stool and tell a story.
Tell me about your headlining tour.
It's the Damn Country Music Tour. Ella Langley's going out with us again. Drake White, Jake Worthington, Wyatt McCubbin, Eric Dillon, Lauren Watkins. The list goes on. There's quite a few openers, and I think that's cool. I think it's nice to be able to kind of share some of what we're getting to do now, which is really awesome, that we have a lot of sold out shows and big crowds, and bring up some artists that I'm a fan of, and try to put on the best show we can. And, you know, a lot of these people are great songwriters, so it'd be nice to have them out on the road, and hopefully some more collaborations like what happened with Ella in the past and Luke Combs in the past will come out of this tour.
What songs, like which of these new songs, are you super excited to share live on this tour?
Well, you know, the timing of that album was actually really great for this tour. I mean, I had shows after it came out in October, but it wasn't a headline tour. It was kind of shows here and there. So being able to go and play songs like Jesus Saves in a sold-out arena that's my tour is something I'm really excited about. I mean, there's also songs that kind of surprised me. Change My Mind is one of those that I always thought was a really fun song. It's definitely a fun live full band song, but it'll be a really cool song to play now that I've seen that it's kind of a hit, you know.
It's like a rocker, I
It
feel
is,
like.
yeah. It is. It turned out great.
talk about Change My Mind for a minute, because I feel like that's one of the ones on the album that's a little bit different that stands out.
Well, Change My Mind is one that a lot of times I can write a song and I kind of know what it's going to be like in the studio. That was one that I really didn't have any idea. And I just know I wanted those big hits in it, and I wanted that big live moment. And a lot of times I write thinking about a live show. Otherwise, it would just be a lot of Jesus Saves, I Wish Grandpa's Never Died, and everybody would just cry the whole time. So having songs with more energy like that is important. And that was one that really kind of came to life in the studio. And I got to give Dan Huff a lot of credit for that one, because it was that guitar lick at the beginning and all that stuff was things that are musically way beyond my knowledge I couldn't have came up with.
Sounds like Dan Huff.
It does.
It does. Tell me about That's a Mistake, because that one made me chuckle, because until you got to the Boots in the Rain part, I was like, he wrote this song about me. Because the song, talk about what the song's about and where that came from.
Well, it's talking about all the things that you do in life that may be at a habit, and me talking about being a procrastinator, waiting till the last minute on things and being late, and very relatable things, especially for me. And then, losing the girl being a mistake that you only make one time. And that song for me was more of the vibe of that song is what I fell in love with. Another one that turned out great in the studio, and it's even got that outro after the song ends. It plays out, and for me that was so natural because I just didn't want it to end. Like the feeling that song gives me, it's got a really cool place on the album too. Like it kind of sets a tone.
You said that you had written a couple like right as you were going into the studio. What are the newest songs on this album?
Don't Mind If I Do. I wrote at a show. I wrote it in Arkansas. And it's weird. I haven't written a lot of duets. It's hard to write a girl's perspective by yourself, And it was something I wanted to try, and I loved the thought of that song, and kind of the play on Don't Mind If I Do. And I remember when I had the title, I thought it was going to be a fun song. I remember thinking, that's like, I shouldn't have a beer tonight, but I don't mind if I do it. I'm going to go out and drink and have a good time. And the song went completely different direction, very serious, kind of break up, want to get back together song. But that one was a really new one. Change My Mind was written right around the same time. And then, like I said, there were some that off of the Way Out Here EP that just raised their hand, and it had to be on the album. So being able to go back and pick from songs, that's the great thing about being able to put out music the way we do now, is you can put songs out and see if they work.
Have any of them surprised you? Other than Worst Way, which apparently is...
That one surprised me a lot. Don't Mind If I Do is a really big song. It surprised me, and I'll never forget we went to Australia my first time going over there in November. So that song hadn't been out all that long, and Ella wasn't on that show, and I'd sort of jokingly said, "Well, all the girls here can sing Ella's part," and they did. They knew every word to it and sang the whole thing. And it was in Brisbane, I think, and just to be that far from home and people, taking a song like that, like I said, wasn't a single, wasn't a I didn't know it was a hit, but it kind of became one.
I read that you had not been on a plane until you signed your record deal.
Yeah.
And you just told me a story about being in Australia and people knowing all the words to your songs. And Riley, it hasn't been that long.
No, it hasn't. That's the crazy thing about what's going on now is I think country music as a genre is so much more popular everywhere. It seems like it's growing every day, and fortunately we're a part of that, and it seems like it's what we're doing is really working. So as a songwriter first, I think that's probably more than anything motivating. It makes you want to go write every day.
Do you have thoughts on what it is that seems to be connecting so well? It's like from your perspective, because you feel it, right?
Yeah, but all I can figure is that I say things simply. I don't. Well, especially when I write by myself, there's times when I get with great songwriters and I have to go, hey man, let's dumb that down a little bit. Like how would I say it, or how would the old guy? I always talk about this place. It's called Green Stores in Pleasant Valley, Alabama, where I'm from, and my granddaddy and all his brothers and all the old guys would go in there and play dominoes and drink coffee before work. And I always like to say things the way they would say it. Those little sayings, and I think there's something relatable like that. I just kind of tell stories about where I grew up, and I think I'm really fortunate a lot of people grew up the same way I did.
Give me an example of those little sayings.
Well, I mean, I don't know how many songs. Don't Mind If I Do is probably one of them, but Hell of a Way to Go stands out to me because that was literally written from my granddaddy's brother saying that, talking about, I think it was him saying he wanted to go on the road with me for a weekend or something. I said, man, I don't know if your heart could handle going out there and everything I got to go through out there. He said, man, that'd be a hell of a way to go. And I'm like, that kind of stuff stays with me forever. So I probably should go and give a percentage to E.O. Green that runs the store for all the things I've heard in there that have inspired songs. But it happens more than you would think.
Well, did you take him with you?
No, he couldn't have handled it, I'm sure.
I think that probably just made him want to go.
He probably did, yeah.
Even more. Was there a moment that you felt a shift? Like that where you felt kind of a tide turning, like, okay, here we go?
Yeah, I mean, there were several small moments like that, that have kind of gotten bigger as it went. I remember opening for Marshall Tucker Band at a place called Zen Park in Anniston, Alabama, which is 10 minutes from where I grew up. It was. I got that opening slot because I played every bar there was there forever, and I'd written a song called "Bury Me in Dixie," and I played that song, and I had to like stop several times because the crowd was cheering at all these lines, and it was kind of cheating. I was talking about Toomer's Corner and Tuscaloosa and the Floribama and Talladega and all that. I was just talking about all these places in Alabama, and if I was a died in an early age, I wanted to put sunglasses on me like Weekend at Bernie's and take me to all these places. And that moment for me was me realizing that I could set myself apart from other people that were more talented than me by writing. Because I was the only one that came up with what I came up with. Whether it was good or not, it was just something that somebody could remember me by because I came to Nashville once and played a writer's round at Tootsie's. And I'll never forget, I played one song and there was 15 people that I listened to after me that were all better than me. So I was like, okay, well, I got to figure something else out. I wasn't the best singer in the world. And so I think it motivated me to try to learn how to write songs. And, we did the show at Hyde Park, me and Morgan, last year, my first time in London, and they sang everything, So, I mean, that was a moment that was kind of eye-opening for me. Doing the stadium tour with Luke Combs and seeing, 60,000 people, whatever it is, singing every word. There were a lot of moments like that along the way.
I think the Hyde Park thing is super remarkable because you do sing so much about, growing up in Alabama and farms. And I've been there a lot. And they do have farmland and countryside, but it's different.
Yeah.
And the fact that you could write those songs that are personal to you in a way that makes them connect over there.
It's a little bit of like, I always loved the song Atlantic City by Bruce Springsteen. And I ended up covering it. My version was a lot more like the band's version. But I had no idea what he was talking about. In any of the lyrics. It's talking about somebody in Jersey, growing up. And I just loved something about the song and even the story that I really couldn't follow. So there's something to that. I've always said that people have a mountain street too. They just call it something different. That was the street where the college was, the football stadium, all the bars I played in, all the fraternity houses, or wherever we went and hung out in Jacksonville, Alabama. And I think people find a way to relate to stuff and make it about their own life.
I had written down to ask about how life had changed since 2019. But I also think it's worth asking how life stayed the same because I feel like you're standing in both worlds. It's like enjoying what you've earned and then keeping your roots strong too.
Well, I think if I'd have just moved to Nashville and kind of parted ways with Northeast Alabama, I might feel a little differently about it, but I still call that home and nothing changes there. I mean, they're still talking about the same stuff. Like my Uncle Wayne pulls up, he stays for about 5 minutes, and he just tells me that the lady at Huddle House's daughter listens to my music. And that's how famous I am to him. Like it's the lady at Huddle House that he sees every day. That's a really easy way to keep yourself grounded and humbled, especially when you go back as often as I do. But more than anything, I get my inspiration from there. I don't have a ton in common with growing up somewhere like Nashville, or a big city, and it can get a little bit, I don't know what the word would be, industrial when you're only writing in writers' rooms on a scheduled time, and you just feel like you're forced to come up with something, and you end up writing a mediocre version of a great idea or a great version of a mediocre idea because you just don't really have it every day. So me going back home and kind of writing when I want to write or when I want to pick guitar up or when I feel inspired, I think that's probably the most important thing about having that place back there.
Where do you write when you're at home? What does that look like? What does a writing day look like for you? Or does it work like that there?
I always feel like my songs start wherever I'm at. And I'll leave and go inside. I got this little writing room back in my farm, and that's where I finish them at in there. And then I usually see if I like them on the porch, and I've got a little cigar room with a card table in there, and I'll live with it in there, and go listen to it, I'll record it on my phone or something. So that farm down there is my inspiration, and songs kind of get written everywhere.
So you write a song, and then you listen to it on the porch, and then you listen to it in the cigar room.
Yeah, I usually write it, and then I'll go and I'll play it, on the porch, and see if I like playing it. Because that's another thing too, is when you cut outside songs, which I haven't done a lot of. There's a lot of songs that I've really loved when I heard them, but I couldn't sing them, or I didn't love singing them, or I didn't love the way I sounded when I sang it, or I didn't believe it, or whatever it was. So when you write stuff, you want to like playing it, So I got to play it a few times before I really sit down and listen to it and see if it's any good. And there's songs like that. There's songs that I just love playing that aren't really that big of hits,
Like what?
Well, a lot of times it's the newest thing. I wrote a song called Make It Rain 2 weeks ago. And that's like, if I sit down and pick a guitar up, that's the one I want to play. And there's a lot of those type of songs that, and Jesus Saves has become one of those. I would play it if I was sitting by myself, but also, because it means something to other people, it kind of gets, that life too. But it's usually sad songs. Those are the ones I like to sit down and play.
Tell me about, let's talk a little bit more about Jesus Saves. Tell me how true that story is. Like, which bits of that were creative and which bits were...
It's always weird, because I feel like as fans always want to think that everything in a song has happened exactly like that. You want, because you picture it, So I don't know why I feel this way, but I always feel like I wish I could say more of it was true. But it was definitely inspired by a guy I saw on the side of the road. And the thought process happened in the car. I mean, it's the same corner right there off of Demumbrian that I've passed so many times, and that's where the idea came from. And the story, I don't know that I even know anybody that's lived through the stuff that, is necessarily in the song, but it's just things that I thought would make me feel compassionate. Like, if I knew this about that guy, what would make me want to stop? And it was those things. And a lot of them are pretty tough topics, and some of them are, they're all things that could really happen to you. And so yeah, it's a really fabricated story, but a lot of it felt real to me.
I think what's interesting about that song is that song was inspired by Nashville, where it seems like a lot of your other stuff, right?
Yeah, I haven't really thought of that. Yeah, I can't think of too many that have been inspired by up here, but even that guy, once, that's where he ended up at, but his story kind of seemed probably like it took place more in a Alabama type place. So it's interesting that you pointed that out.
Tell me about your farm, because you said it was 680 acres. I read a list of the critters that you have. I need to know if you have a mini cow.
Not yet, but we're building a fence right now.
For a mini cow?
Well, not just for a mini cow. I'm making some horses, and everybody likes the cows with bangs. What do you call them? The Highland, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one everybody's got pictures of in their house. They sell at Target.
I have two.
Yeah. I got two for Christmas for my sister, so I can't.
Cows
say
or
that.
Pictures?
Two. My sister didn't give me any cows for Christmas. No, we're not that country down there. Just pictures of cows.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, not at all. But I've got my dad building a fence. I tried to get him to hire somebody to do it, and he said he wanted to do it, so he's putting one post in at a time, a fence of 20 acres. So in a few years, I'll have some cows.
Oh, he's just a patient man.
He's not, though. He's not.
Are you a patient man?
No, not really. No, most of my projects on the farm are just to keep him busy. He did construction his whole life and just tried to kill himself by just how hard he worked. So I try to slow him down. I'm like, go hire somebody, get somebody to help you, and he never does. He's out there doing it by himself, And I'll end up going home and I'll work with him for a few hours, and it almost kills me. So I gotta just keep him something to do. That's all it is. He's got to have some kind of project.
Well, maybe it's keeping him healthy and active,
It's keeping him going, that's for sure.
When somebody listens to this album, what do you want them to take away?
Well, like I said, I think that my motivation was a lot to have to try to go outside of my comfort zone a little bit and try some things, which seem to work pretty well with songs like Worst Way and Change My Mind. So I certainly am happy about that. But I want people to hear an album of mine and think that's a Riley Green album, And I think that's something where I naturally write from. I always want that to be present on an album or a project I put out, is those story type songs that have kind of got me here. Because I've got a lot of fans that saw me play in little hole-in-the-wall bars in Northeast Alabama or North Georgia or Mississippi or whatever it is, and I want them to come to a show and feel that nostalgic thing that kind of brought them to me in the first place. And for that reason, I still play a lot of the songs I played 10 years ago. They kind of, I can't get them out of the set list.
Thank you so much for coming to chat about the album today. We can't wait to see you on the road.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.